So the Panthers season has been over about 2, 3 weeks now, but it already seems like so much has happened in such little time. And this is going to be a big offseason of change, obviously, with the team being in transition from a head coaching standpoint and just obviously moving on from Christian McCaffrey. This will be the first offseason in a while where we have a lot of questions that need to be answered and a lot of things that need to be accomplished to make sure things get off on the right foot for this future going forward. So in this video today, we're going to talk about a preview of this offseason, one of the most crucial, if not the most important offseason in franchise history. We got to get into all the details from cap space, a team needs, what our priorities are, and what else we're going to do going forward. We got all that and more. We're going to start right now. What's going on, Panthers Nation? My name is Aaron Duncan here, and I start off every video by saying, what up, dude? Here on Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk, I do recap and analysis of the NFL, in particular the Carolina Panthers. So if you want to see more videos like this, talking about the Panthers, I got some draft content and film content that I always do anyway, but I'm going to do a lot more in terms of prospects and draft positioning and stuff like that going forward as well. So if you want to see stuff like that, hit the subscribe button down below and give the video a thumbs up because it really helps me out in the algorithm when you engage. And also, leave your comments and your thoughts down below. We can chop it up, break bread, talk about your thoughts in this offseason because I have a couple things I want to get into. And the first thing I want to get into is the priorities for this offseason. The number one priority for this offseason has got to be finding a head coach, okay? So it seems like the search will be a little bit shorter. Obviously, Scott Fitterer, our GM, told us in the exit interviews after the season was over that it would be a short list of candidates. What happened? The complete opposite. I think the list of candidates is up to at least 7 or 8 right now, with a few more interviews to left to be had. Whether you want an offensive-minded coach, you're comfortable with what interim coach Steve Wilkes did, or you just really don't care, picking a head coach and the right leader is going to mean everything. I'm not overly concerned with following the trends of the next trend of who is an offensive coach and is he a defensive coach. I want the right guy because there's plenty of offensive guys in the league that flop and make terrible play calls all the time. And there's defensive guys also that can get to the top or don't get it done as well. So it's not really about is the offense or defensive focus. And I think too many people get focused and caught up on that type of stuff. You need to get a good coach that's smart, that's a leader, that's respected, that can make in-game adjustments, that's a strategist, that understands the game and understands when to push certain buttons and just has that feel for the game as well, while also balancing your analytics and stuff like that as well. So that means a lot more to me than just getting the next hot shot under 40 that wears a quarter zip just because you think that he's going to be the next hottest thing smoking. It is not that easy. But the overall list of interviews has been heavily leaned towards offensive guys, with Steve Wilkes obviously being in there. And according to reports, he's presented a very solid, strong offensive plan and quarterback plan going forward for this team. So obviously making the correct hires and building out the staff will be crucial for any coach that's upon this Panthers franchise, because let's be honest. This Panthers franchise needs stabilization. Ever since David Tepper has become the owner, it's been nothing but losses. Losses, losses, losses. And the transition from Ron Rivera and Cam Newton has not been a graceful one, to say the least, and it has been a while since we made the playoffs. And with all the chaos that happened with Matt Rule and what he left behind with some of the bridges he might have burned, we need somebody that's a professional that can come in and make this team a serious team and a serious organization and respect it yet again. And the head coach is a statement piece, and he is that guy that can right the ship. Let's hope that we make the right choice. Doing things outside the box may seem cool and all when you come in as an owner like David Tepper and trying to do things your own way, but it seems to be the most expensive mistakes that he makes time and time again that comes and bites him in the butt. Regardless, the division is in transition with most teams rebuilding and Tom Brady leaving at that. It's really fluid right now in the NFC South. The people can complain about only reason the Panthers had a chance because the division is trash. The division is going to be trash probably next year and next year before. The future does not look too bright for this division. So it's time for the Panthers to get a quarterback, get a coach, and put a chokehold on this division and run this thing for the next few years, because that's the easiest way to get to the playoffs and the easiest way to get to the Super Bowl. So taking a stronghold of this division with the next coach is going to be key. The second priority for me is going to be finding a quarterback, because the theme of the Matt Rule era just was defined by retread and reclamation project quarterbacks and trying to cheat the system. You can't cheat the grind, man. You have to be able to draft and develop your own quarterback. A lot of things can be debated as far as coaching and what style works best. But I don't think there's any debate that you need a quality and reliable quarterback to be able to make any kind of strides to the playoffs or even a Super Bowl at that. Yes, there's a lot of other factors, but stabilizing and getting a reliable quarterback is everything in this league. And I think, like I said, that was the cardinal sin for Matt Rule. Whoever is the next coach should make that priority number one for themselves. So getting that quarterback is going to be the thing that sets your franchise up going forward. Just look what the Bengals did. Getting Joe Burrow. They went from the number one overall pick to going to a Super Bowl within 3 years. And now they're on the verge of making another one with the guy that was just number one overall pick that came in and just completely turned things around because the confidence, the bravado they brought with him, they put weapons around him, even though they don't have the offensive line. It just makes everything go because there's that belief in Joe Burrow that things can just turn around. And they're always going to have a chance with Joe Burrow on the team. So the impact that a quarterback and the right quarterback can have on your team cannot be dismissed. I think it's far and beyond time that the Panthers are overdue to draft their own young guy, your guy, high in the draft. Get him on that rookie contract with the fifth-year option. That way you can manage the salary cap, load up on talent, and pay your other guys on defense like Brian Burns or Derek Brown or J.C. Horn whenever he comes up. That way you have that flexibility by having your young quarterback to be able to drive the bus for a very cheap contract that allows you to pay the rest of the team and load it up on talent. It's far and beyond time that they've done that. They haven't drafted a first-round quarterback since Cam Newton. That's over a decade. Long overdue. The Panthers need to get this done. People love to dunk on defensive coaches, but none of these coaches are quarterback proof, except maybe Kyle Shanahan. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's just doing crazy things with Brock Purdy. But regardless, he still struggled with the top guy with Trey Lance. So you have to get the right quarterback and the right guy no matter who the coach is, and that means everything. Obviously, there's other factors that play in, like I said before, but a quarterback can set your franchise up for success going forward, and it's far and beyond time the Panthers address that need. But let's transition to talk about the Panthers offseason and their cap space as we get ready, as the next step is going into free agency. Now, if you look at your favorite capologist website, whether it's Over the Cap or Spot Track, the things don't look good for the Panthers at present time. Some have us over the cap. Some have us just with $300-something thousand in cap space. It's just not pretty if you look at it as is. But fortunately for the Panthers, they're going to roll over $10 million in salary cap as unused from this year to next year. That's the second highest in the NFL. So we're in good shape there. And with the salary cap, not really at an exact number yet, but just known to be over $220 million, the Panthers can create some cap space and some wiggle room. Obviously, with these new websites out, there's a lot more functionality. You can play around and move chess pieces around. So me personally, I'm going to show you how to take the Panthers from little bitty old cap space that we have now all the way to big cap space. So we have some major cap space and making real players in free agency. You ready to see how I can turn water into wine? Let's go ahead and get into the lab. So the first two moves are going to be cutting some veterans. And number one is going to be cutting Pat Elflein. Now, cutting Pat Elflein is going to save about $4.75 million. Second, you're going to cut Damian Wilson. That's going to save about $3.6 million. Now, obviously, Damian Wilson didn't give us much from the defensive standpoint. We needed help from linebackers. Didn't give us much at all. We have some young guys in Brandon Smith that's going to give us a chance. Damian Wilson is expendable. Pat Elflein ended up getting hurt. Played solid, was a starter for most of the year, but we know our priority needs to be Bradley Bozeman, who probably played better, and Pat Elflein has been collecting money for a while for these Panthers thanks to Matt Rule. Let's go ahead and move on from him. We appreciate your services, Pat, but you and Damian Wilson got to get up out of here. So between those two guys, you're going to get about $8 million in cap space. There's three other moves you need to do to restructure. You're going to restructure DJ Moore. I played around with some numbers, and I created about $12 million by converting some of his base salary into bonus. That way, roster bonuses. That way, it doesn't count against the cap. DJ still gets the cash, and you have more flexibility. You know DJ's going to be around, so you kick some of that can down the road as far as cap liability. Second, I restructured Dante Jackson. A lot of people may hate this, but I created another $4 million by restructuring Dante. Just doing it this one time just to see where we are. He just signed that deal. Obviously, we know the difference when him and JC are on the field and when they're not. We saw what happened in the Bucs game. So restructuring Dante's fresh contract that we just got last year will create another $4. You're going to restructure Austin Corbett as well on the offensive line. Yes, he's coming off injury. He may not be ready next year. start of next year, but you're going to create $6 million by that conversion and restructuring his contract as well. And last but not least, this is a tough one. Unless you want to make some kind of trade, you have to restructure Taylor Moton because that will create another $11 million. Now, Taylor Moton struggled this year at right tackle and did not live up to the bill from what we paid him for. Nevertheless, Taylor Moton was playing hurt. Trust me. He hurt his knee sometime earlier in the year. He was on that Christian McCaffrey not practicing on Wednesday regimen just because he was managing. It was something that wasn't going to get better. I wouldn't be surprised to see something that comes out that says that he had some kind of surgery to clean up the knee scope or whatever, just to clean up some loose cartridge or whatever. But Taylor Moton restructuring him, $11 million. Throughout these three restructures, that's $33 million of cap space created. Now we're cooking. Next, you're going to take Brian Burns. And you're going to take it. He's on a 5th-year option going into next year. You're going to extend him, of course. For kicks and giggles, I gave him the Max Crosby extension. I think it'll be more than that, but I say his talent level and production is on that Max Crosby level. And restructuring his 5th-year option deal and creating some of that into roster bonus is going to get $12 million in salary cap as well. And next, you're going to actually extend and restructure Shaq Thompson's contract. He has a massive cap hit this year, almost $20 million. And I agree. Shaq is not worth that. But he's not a liability like some people think. He's a solid vet. He's going to be a good locker room guy no matter who the head coach is. Obviously, he's a big proponent of Steve Wilkes, but he's been here his whole career. He has been solid. You take that contract, you break it up and split what he's getting paid now over the next few years, give him some extra bonuses, and he knows he wants to do whatever it takes to get there. He's on record saying that he will be willing to restructure and possibly take less money. So by restructuring the deal like I did with Shaq, you save another $9 million. And look, I'll put the graphic up. This gets us to $50 million. $50 million in salary cap. I told you I'm putting my big cap on. $50 million in salary cap is enough to get it popping because we're going to talk about some of the pending free agents on this team, but I wanted to show you how the Panthers can create $50 million by doing some moves that pretty much seem like no-brainers. Yes, you may want to argue against extending Shaq and extending Dante, but I think every other move that I said, it seems pretty logical because even if you don't do the Dante and Shaq part, you're still going to have $37 million, which is okay. But $50 million sounds a lot better to me. You guys let me know how you feel about all those cap moves I talked about. And do you think I'm on the right track with the big cap? Or you think I'm smoking something because I want to extend Shaq and I want to restructure Dante Jackson? Let me know down below in the comments. So the Panthers do indeed have a ton of big free agents that are pending, but I have the 4 priority guys that I think that we definitely need to re-sign. Obviously, adding more talent through the draft and free agency is very important, but there are 4 guys that I think would be quality people to sign. Number 1 is going to be Bradley Bozeman. He should be priority number 1. There's no denying the fact that once he was inserted into the starting lineup, this offensive line took a very big jump. It was on a good trajectory, but the mentality just completely changed when Bozeman became the starter. We became the real knock him out, slobber knocker running team, hard nose, no more of that finesse. We ended up being bullets. And Bradley Bozeman is one of the bigger centers in the league, and he loves it here in Charlotte. He wants to be here. He's been ingratiating himself into the community. He is a textbook type of guy. The front office has made it clear that they want him back as a priority. He wants it back. Let's get a deal done and get things going with Bradley Bozeman to keep this offensive line intact. Number 2, I was re-sign D'Onta Foreman. Now, obviously, this is going to matter about who the coach is because certain coaches and offensive assistants may not fit the bill for what D'Onta Foreman is. I think he's a very capable back, but I still think he has his limitations when it comes to certain systems and also the receiving game in general. So I would want to bring D'Onta Foreman back on a team-friendly deal if he wants to come back. He's made it very clear that he wants to come back. He likes it here in Charlotte. He likes being able to get the bulk of the carries. I don't blame him. So I would be open to bringing Foreman back, even though I do want to see us add some depth at running back, somebody that can hit a home run. Number 3, Sam Franklin. He's a great special teams player. You're only going to have to sign him to a restricted free agent tender, which is not going to be much. So bringing him back as a high energy guy, a good special teams ace that you can put on all the phases of special teams. I love Sam Franklin's energy. I love his bravado. He plays at 100 miles per hour. He can hit and he talks that talk, and he can walk that walk a little bit when it comes to special teams. He's a Pro Bowl alternative. This guy's a solid player, man. Let's keep him around. He's actually one of those rule guys that I wouldn't mind keeping to stick around. Another rule guy that I wouldn't mind keeping around, PJ Walker. PJ Walker, I would sign him to a restricted free agent tender. It's not going to cost you about $1 million or $2. He's shown that he can be a quality backup. He's a strong arm. He's athletic. He's a little undersized, but he can get you some wins in the spot because he showed you he can do that when everything around him goes well. And that's what you want from a quarterback. And for him to be that cheap and potentially the only veteran we have in this QB room, I think picking up PJ Walker is a lot better idea than paying him $1 or $2 million than it may be to pay Sam Darnold another $12, $15 million to come here and be a bridge guy. I don't know. It depends on the coach, like I said once again, but PJ Walker, for that price, I would definitely not mind having this guy around here in Carolina. Finally, let's get to some areas of improvement that the Panthers should look for to prioritize. Scott Fitterer talked about in his exit interview the position that they were looking at. They were looking at speed at the wide receiver, a tight end, a ball hawk safety, linebacker speed, and an edge. I can't agree more 100% because we know we need help opposite of Brian Burns. We know we need linebacker help outside of Shaq Thompson. A ball hawk at safety would be great because we had a lot of drop turn picks. The tight end room, we've got nothing from them, the least productive tight end room in the NFL, so definitely getting the tight end there and speed to take the top off, losing Robbie Anderson, who wasn't giving us much anyway, but also having another deep threat outside of outside of DJ Moore or outside of Terrace Marshall Jr. trying to go up and catch a 50-50 ball would be great to have somebody running down that seam with some speed. So I agree with everything. But how do we address this? I like the idea of adding a veteran linebacker instead of trying to bring in another guy. We always know we have Brandon Smith, who's going to be going to his second year next year. Hopefully he'll make some changes in terms of his body size and just his skill set and ability with all the experience that he gained. But I do want to add another vet to pair with Shaq and Brandon in that group. That way we have some speed and some hard hitters. There's a lot of guys in this veteran linebacking group that we'll talk about free agency as it gets a little bit closer once we see who signs the extension and who doesn't. But early on, this linebacking class of free agents looks pretty solid. So I want to address linebackers through free agency. I want to draft a young edge. I want to draft that tight end because I like the depth in this tight end class. Speed at wide receiver. There's a lot of guys in this draft that I like as well. And safety, we could go after Jesse Bates, but he'll probably be one of the most coveted safeties in football. But we could possibly go to the draft with that as well if we want to. Other priorities: extending Brian Burns. Keep this guy around. You passed up the offer of getting 2 first-round draft picks from the Rams. Don't be stupid and trade him somewhere else for less. Extend this man. Get it done early. Get the drama out the way. Fifth-year options. Derek Brown should be a no-brainer. He took that leap from year 2 to year 3. A lot of people wanted him to be, they called him a draft bust. They wanted Isaiah Simmons. He proved all the naysayers wrong. He made a lot of noise, made a big step. I still want to see him develop from the pass rush standpoint, but he's definitely done enough to earn that 5th-year option. And no, I know it's only been 3 years for Derek Brown, but you have to sign the 5th-year option for your drafted players after their 3rd year. So you already know. Another guy that's a 5th-year option potentially is C.J. Henderson. Obviously, we traded him. We didn't draft him in the 1st round. He's up for his 5th-year option consideration. I'm going to have to humbly pass. We'll talk about this in another video, but C.J. Henderson is probably cornerback 3, 4. Yes, he's a good depth piece. I don't hate him as a piece, as a backup in the depth and rotation when we need to, but clearly long-term prospects of him being a cornerback 1 or 2 and being a guy we can consistently rely upon when we need to, it's shown that that's not the case, especially after that Bucs game. Granted, some of that stuff wasn't totally his fault, but he's shown that he's not a guy that we can 100% count on. So giving him that 5th-year option at $12, $13 million does not seem wise because that's exactly what we paid Dante Jackson. I would let him play out the contract. He has 1 more year left without that 5th-year option. If he plays decent, you can maybe bring him back as a depth piece. If not, let him walk in free agency. I want to see definitely more progress from CJ. Maybe some new coaches will have some better hope for him, whoever, depending on what the staff is once we get fully staffed. But I got to see more from CJ. overall, I just put together an offseason preview plan for the team. I wanted to get you guys' thoughts about what you thought about the cap space, about the pending free agents that I talked about, or if I missed any free agents that we should probably sign back. Let me know down below in the comments how you feeling. But without further ado, my name is Aaron Duncan with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.